Welcome to Now, the informative talk show that talks about everything and everybody.
Welcome to Now, N-O-W, the talk show that talks about everything and everybody. I'm your host, PM Blossom, and joining me are my co-hosts, Brian Wright, Karen Hammonds, Kim Galloway, and Tony Carter. Today we have a great show for you. We're going to talk about relationships. Relationships. Let's start with marriage. And we have the marriage master here, Mr. Brian Wright.
Yes.
Let's talk about communication in relationships. How do you communicate with your wife? How should we communicate with our spouses?
One thing about communication, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be able to.
Whoa, he's already put a stop sign up. He's already wiped us out.
Already did.
Vulnerable means you have to undress. You have to show who you really are.
And how you really feel.
And how you really feel. Is that what you're really talking about?
Yes. You have
Okay,
to
explain it to us.
You have to put away your pride, and you have to let your spouse know, like if it's something that they said or whatever that hurt them or whatever, or hurt you, whatever the case may be, you have to divulge that. You can't, and it's hard for men a lot of times because we talk to be the macho man or whatever the case
It's
may be.
hard for women.
But it's hard for women too. But you know, with men, we were always taught not to be vulnerable.
Right.
When you fall off a bike or something, you get up. You a man. You don't cry like no little girl. You know, or whatever the case may be. So what was instilled in us since birth, now you're telling us, or we have to go against the way we was raised in most cases, in most households. So,
But who's telling you have to be vulnerable?
you have to in order you're not gonna get through to your spouse being prideful or not saying how you really feel. You know, just going through, you're gonna have a lot of issues, a lot of problems. It's a different way, you know, to communicate, but communication is the key. If there's no communication, then you have a big problem.
So what is communication to you, Tony?
Communication is, you really got to sit down and put things in perspective, because with me and my wife, we used to have a real bad communication problem. You know what
What's
I'm saying?
real bad? Tell us about it.
I mean, like, she say something, then cut me. I don't say nothing, I'm gone. I'm out of it. You know what I'm saying? That's when I had to learn, no, we got to talk about this. So put everything on the table. Let's get this over with, you know what I'm saying, so we can move on. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I understand communication. I understand putting it on the table. What happens when you put it on the table? Are you talking about what you are putting on the table? Are you working it out? Are you solving it? Or are you just putting it on the table and saying, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did this, and then you're up and you're gone?
No, you gotta talk about it. You gotta resolve that issue right then and there.
Okay, but there's some issues that you cannot resolve in an hour or a day.
Correct.
So that means it must be continual communication.
Yes.
Okay, so if it's continual communication, who's in charge? Who? I understand men are in charge of their families and you're the heads of the house, but who's in charge of this communication?
That's where the lines get skirted, because sometimes you'll leave that point and you'll leave it right there and you'll never get back to it. And then that problem will rear its ugly head again, and then you're in a fight or flight mode.
Fight or flight? What is that?
You either in there, you arguing about it, fighting about it, or you might dissolve it. You know what I'm saying?
Or you might just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Like an ostrich, put his head in the sand. Okay, let me ask you a question, Karen. Early in your marriage, was it good communication, bad communication, or no communication at all?
It was all of them, a combination of
What?
I think it was, well.
Because women talk.
Women talk. We talk, you know. Sometimes we had to disagree to agree. Sometimes we had to, you know, leave it, you know. It's all kind of things, because you got to do whatever it takes, you know. You got to
You got to talk about it until you talk about it until you talk about it until you solve it.
That's it.
Okay.
Make it right.
Shonda was saying something, and she was talking about verbal abuse, and then she was talking about the silent treatment was also abuse.
Form of abuse.
It's a form of abuse, but how is the silent treatment a form of abuse? Because I'm quiet.
But what
I don't want to hurt your feelings. That's why I'm zipping my lip. I don't want to say anything else.
It feels like that to women because now the one thing about it, men need respect, women need love. And I was looking at I forgot his name. I was looking at
hold on. I need respect and love.
which is true, But you know, it's like most of if the man is gonna, like he was saying, what is his name, Dr. Eldridge. He was saying the way God designed men, that's when I was saying, we talked earlier about not crossing the line. Men usually go off of respect. It's like, you know, I'm not gonna cross that line. If you got a friend and you guys get heated, it's only gonna go to a certain extent most of the time. Because a man's like, I respect you enough, I'm gonna fall back.
Okay.
You know, and so that's what he was saying about men. So usually we deal in respect. You know, it's like Tony said about shutting down, or I like certain things I'm not gonna say. You can't take back because out of that respect. But I still got love as well, you know. But certain things I'm not gonna say. But it feels unloving when men shut down like that.
Okay, well, how's that unloving? I mean, Tony said fight or flight.
Yeah.
So he continues to communicate, or he retreats.
It all depends
So
on your
retreat
makeup.
means
to run.
to run. It means no communication.
Like me myself, I think my wife is more of a runner. You know, so usually in it all depends on
You
what
go,
your spouse
Shonda.
is.
Go ahead.
It all depends on what your spouse makeup is. So she's more of a runner.
What is a runner?
A runner is like, I don't want to deal with it. So you'll remove yourself as well because you don't want to deal with it. You know.
Okay, but if you don't deal with it, it's coming back again, and it's coming back harder and larger and more ferocious than before.
So both the men and the women got to put the men got to put the big boy drawers on, the women got to put the big girl panties on, or whatever the case may be, and deal with the issue. We can't be punks in marriage. I don't know what people like. Oh, marriage ain't for the faint of heart. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for punks.
Be no punk.
You know, it takes a real man to to humble himself and communicate out of vulnerability, and a real woman to humble herself and communicate out of her vulnerability.
Okay, let me ask you a question, Kim. Are you a retreater?
I doubt it.
Look, I don't even know what that means. Look, no.
You're not a retreater? No. So you a fight instead of flight.
Yes.
So how do you fight? How do you
fight it out.
You're not talking about physical, are you?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I kind of we're gonna fight it out.
She had a hand up.
Yeah, she had a hand up. I'm like, oh my God, turn the cameras off. Okay, but you're gonna fight it out. That means you're gonna stay and communicate until the problem is solved. So
until we can agree to disagree, but that running away thing, yeah, I can't do it because I'm not going to want to deal with it later. So let's deal with it now. Let's put all our cards on the table and get it over with. Now, my husband, he a flight. He going to run.
Okay.
We got to block him. Nah, bro, we going to talk about this
really?
now.
But that's one thing that women...
things that you may have to run.
Yes. That's what I was going to say.
You see what I'm saying? It's some arguments and some fights and some disagreements. You do good to get some hat. Okay.
The time has to be right. The timing has to be right. You in some cases there needs to be space, and maybe agree to come back and revisit whatever it is, like Tony was saying, that you need to talk about, because sometimes it can be getting so heated. It needs to be space, And again, a real man dealing out of respect want to remove himself before he says something, or whatever the case may be that he should or do.
Is it remove myself before I say something, or remove myself because I don't know how to solve the problem? Because I'm not trying to be funny. A lot of men just shut down, silent, Okay, it's verbal abuse, you said. Not because they want to, I'm not going to say, I'm going to say the wrong thing and I may hurt her feelings. I don't know how to solve this. And so if I don't know how to solve it, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to zip my lip. So which is it, Tony?
All depends on the situation, because sometimes it's not a right or wrong in some situations, but even if you don't know how to solve it, you still got to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? But
how do you talk about a situation that you don't know how to solve?
That's tough. That's when the fight come in, then you flight.
Are you kidding me? Are you for real?
That's when, if you don't know how to solve it, you gotta keep banging at it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, go ahead, Karen.
You got to be flexible too, because your spouse is trying to get their point across, and you trying to get your point across. So
okay,
you have to it has to be like a give and take. So I hear what you're saying. I can see the words, and I hear the words coming out your mouth. Do I really necessarily agree with it? Maybe not. But if it means we can agree to disagree, then we're going to do whatever it takes. Because you know what? We can't go through this anymore. This is too much.
Okay, but this notion of agree to disagree, this is crazy. How do you agree to disagree? It doesn't make sense to me. Explain it, because you always talk about agree to disagree.
Because technically, in my mind, I'm with you, because I don't get it either.
I don't understand
I just say, whatever, just let it go. I just feel like in my mind I'm right. So I'm like, okay, we'll agree to disagree. I'm agreeing I'm right and you wrong, and I'm disagreeing with everything you're saying, but we're going to keep the peace. Like, literally, that's how
But how do you keep the peace and the problem is still there?
I don't, you know what? When I agree to disagree, it's more of a
it's for your
what's the word? Like we just meeting in the middle.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, well, I am, but for
You're
him,
not even meeting in the middle, because you're not meeting in the middle.
I don't think you agree to disagree on anything really bad. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, okay, I agree that, it's really not that cold in here. Like, it's something minute. It's nothing big. I would never agree to disagree on something big, something minute.
Okay, something small.
Yeah, real small. Like,
Okay.
I don't think you should agree to disagree on
I don't
anything
think,
big.
in marriage, I don't think there should be agree to disagree. How can you agree to disagree? We have different opinions, different views. Okay, I want to go left, you want to go right. So how are we going to agree to disagree? It doesn't make sense to me. Go ahead, you seem like you got the answer.
Somebody has to have a trump card in this agree to disagree in a sense.
Well, I normally have the trump
You
card.
don't have a trump card.
No, I'm serious,
Yeah.
but how do you do this?
I don't know about the degree to disagree.
But audience, I'm not trying to be funny.
No, yeah.
This is a problem to me. How do I agree to disagree? This is a serious problem. We're both facing it. We cannot walk away and say, okay, we're agreeing to disagree. We still have the problem.
I don't think you can.
It's impossible, is it
You
not?
can't agree to disagree on something
It'll
big
never be
like
solved.
that. Yeah.
If it's never solved, that means 6 months later, 9 months later, every other month, the same problem is going to pop up.
All depend on what it is. Somebody
What it is.
somebody has to be the bigger person and, say, and
Yeah.
acquiesce and say, you know what, I'm gonna give. And
That's
give
it.
some. All depends
Concede.
on what it is.
That's
Okay,
it.
but the person that gives may be giving something up very valuable in their own relationship, in what they need. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Now, going back to that, as far as in that aspect of it, I always say, that the spouse opinion is valid. How they feel is valid. You cannot tell the spouse how they feel or how to feel about a certain topic. There's no agreeing to disagree. It's about being respectful.
Okay.
Being respectful
Right.
and being, in a sense, I guess, honorable, whatever the case may be in that matter. Being able to hear your spouse. When she was saying earlier about she said something about hearing, but that's a part of the communication. You got to be able to have a conversation not to be heard, but you got to have that conversation in order to hear as well.
Okay, so what you're saying is if I say my feelings are hurt and you say, Why are your feelings hurt?
It wasn't that
It
bad.
wasn't that bad. So you're not recognizing who I am and how I feel.
You're not taking it in account.
Then that's,
Okay.
that's different. That's totally different.
And then that
too.
person ain't gonna feel love.
Right.
Either way it go, if whether it's the man or if it's the wife, my feelings are not valid in this relationship. You gonna have a problem as big as a Grand Canyon.
Right.
Okay, but your feelings and your emotions are usually pivoted and brought to bear by your gender, by your culture, how you were raised, how you saw your mom and dad interact, how you see other people interact. So how do we come to terms and say, okay, I have something that I need to get off my chest. You don't see what I see. How do you do that? How do you make that person see it? Will they see it?
They may not.
Ooh, they may not.
They might not see it.
Is that when you agree to disagree?
Sometimes you got to sit with that, though. If you telling somebody how you feel, and your first reaction is gonna be like,
That's stupid.
yeah, but then you gotta.
That's the vulnerability.
But then sometimes that's when you gotta get by yourself. Like, am I really being unreasonable? Is that
There
a
you
valid
go.
point?
So-
You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes
Evaluate yourself.
it be a valid point, and you be
Yeah.
like, oh, look, well, let me handle this different because I understand now.
Okay, so how long does it take you to understand?
No, just to get away and think about it. Because sometimes if you berating somebody with wah, they not gonna listen.
They're not gonna hear it.
The other
Defense
party
is
is not gonna
automatically.
listen.
Okay, not going to listen. What happens when both spouses refuse to listen?
You got problems. You got problems. There's not gonna be any peace
But
in
wait a
that
minute,
household.
we do have a problem. But I see marriages, people have been married 30, 20, 25, 40 years. Neither spouse.
Not happy.
Not happy.
Not happy.
Okay. So
They're existing.
I don't even think they're existing. I think they're two people living in a house hoping that one person sees their point of view and comes to terms with what they need. That's what I think.
And that's
Now,
the key, what you
That's
said.
sad.
What
Open.
they need.
there you go.
And so if my spouse needs this, am I going to be that selfish where I cannot give them what they need?
Well,
And
is it selfishness?
in some cases it can be,
Okay.
but in some cases you're not equipped.
Or unable to give the spouse what
What
the
they-
spouse needs. Okay, but you said something, selfishness. What happens in a marriage when one is selfish and the other person is not?
Well, the person that's selfish is going to take advantage of the person that's not, but
Ooh.
it's going to come to a head. It's going to come to a head. You're going to burn down your own house
Yeah.
being selfish. I've seen it.
Okay.
I've seen it.
Give me an example, Tony, of being selfish.
I'm not. Yeah.
Karen?
An example of being selfish. Well, if your spouse says, I want to have dinner on Friday, let's make it a standing date, and you just for whatever reason, you
I don't wanna
refuse
do
I
that.
don't want to do that.
I don't want to do dinner on
Is that-
Friday.
right,
My
it's-
favorite program is on Friday. I don't want to do that.
I don't wanna
You're
do
talking
that.
about dinner. You just want me to cook. So is that
That's
selfish?
It could be. I mean, it could be, but
Is
then
it
again, the person
selfish
has-
or is it the person does not want to do that? Is it because
just
I
don't
don't want
wanna
to
do
do it? Does
Yeah.
that make me selfish?
It depends. Because if Friday is like a light day for you and he just sitting down watching TV, then it is selfishness, I think. But if, it can go either way.
It can.
It can go either way because if Friday is like an easy day for me and that's the day we can go out and I can give you the attention you need or do whatever, then I feel like if all you doing is sitting watching your favorite program, it's selfishness. Like,
That's selfish.
yeah, most definitely.
So this is my favorite program.
TiVo.
TiVo, or what is the other thing they got now? Not TiVo,
DVR.
but
DVR.
the DVR.
Yeah,
Record.
DVR. You record.
But why would I want to do that? I'm off on Friday. My favorite program is at 7 o'clock. I watch this program. Been watching this program for 5 straight years. Me, popcorn in the program. I don't want you here.
I tell you what, the Bible says, give no office, no room to the enemy. So if you're not going to spend that time that your spouse so desperately needs, then that means you
But
can
who
open
says
the
the
door.
spouse is desperate? It could just be now.
But so it has to be a case by case basis.
Okay.
And all depends on how serious it is. Because if you're not speaking your spouse love language, you're going to have a problem. If it's your spouse and your spouse needs time,
Okay.
and you never have time for your spouse is not going to feel love. If that spouse is not feel, if he or she does not feel love, then it's not going to be any peace, or it's not going to be any happiness in that home.
Okay, what is, audience, I'm not really dumb, but I'm going to ask this dumb question. What is a love language?
Of love language, is Dr. Gary Chapman got a book. I mean, I ain't trying to plug his book, but nevertheless, I should plug his book because it saves so many marriages. It's called The 5 Love Language. One love language will be, it's how your spouse feels love, you know, when you meet these needs. One is physical touch, one is time, one is acts of service, one is words of affirmation, and one is gifts. And so, like, just an example.
Okay.
My wife, for years, like, I was going to work, working overtime or whatever the case may be, and so she was like, she wasn't feeling love. She was feeling lonely, and we're married. I'm at home, you know, whatever the case may be when I get off or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But she was feeling lonely. She's like, do you love me? I'm like, yeah, I love you, woman. You know, because my background here, like you were saying.
Yeah, I love you, woman. Didn't I pay the rent?
Yeah.
Didn't I pay the car note?
I'm working hard to make sure we have what we need. I'm working this overtime and everything else, but I'm loving the way I think she want to be loved, not understanding the way she needed to be loved.
Okay,
and that's
so,
key.
Wait, let me interrupt you. So what you're saying is the average man feels like he's showing his wife love when he pays the mortgage, pays the car note, and supplies the material things in the house.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's like sacrifice, putting his body on the line to make sure the house is good.
Okay, so sound like love to me.
But
that didn't mean
but that may be your love language. But it all depends. To some, it will sound like love. You know, or if you buying a woman a gifts, and that's not her love language. Her love language is words of affirmation. So on the flip side of this love language thing, if her love language is words of affirmation, and you're berating her, or now that's even double.
Right.
It's even way worse, because that's her love language. So she's not getting what she's needed, you know, or whatever the case may be, in that moment.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He named how many? 5. And you talked about
I talked about words of affirmation. I mentioned time, and I mentioned pretty much like gifts with, you know, with. And
I like that gift stuff.
And then it's acts of service. You know?
Okay, so what is the act of service?
Acts of service is meeting the need of your spouse, what they deem important or whatever. Or like with the house falling apart and you just looking there while the house falling apart. you don't do anything. The garbage is overflowing. Right. You don't take the garbage out. I mean, acts of service. What it's saying is you matter to me.
Okay, so what is your act of service?
Well, that is my love language, acts of service. So for me, it's anything you do without me having to ask you to keep doing it.
Okay,
or
so
ask you to do it, period.
Well, see, you didn't hear me. What is your act of service
what is
towards
mine?
Taking an awful long time to answer.
Over there, me.
Right, because you know it's me. You know what? My acts of service, for me, I do the little things. Like when we getting up in the morning, he taking me to work, I always just put a bottle of water in the freezer and make sure he have cold water when we leave.
Ain't no act of
That is
service.
an act of service. You know, or, you know, when, like, I know he like his side of the bed a certain way.
Okay.
So I make sure I do that before I go to bed.
Okay.
You know, like even if it's like turning down the sheets or whatever.
Okay.
That's acts of service.
Okay.
You know?
Tony, what's your act of service? I'm learning new things as old as I am. What's your act of service?
My act of service is just being there, being ready for that conversation. Because my wife, she likes to talk. She like to. That's her love language is
communication.
So she like to talk and be in the moment. Don't just be there.
So that's basically time.
Mm-hmm.
That's time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you come home and she's talking.
That quality time.
You got that quality time.
Yeah.
Are you communicating? Or are you just
Nah, you know,
You
if you're
better
not
be engaged.
communicating,
You better be engaged.
she's gonna tell you?
you're gonna be sitting at that table. We gonna talk. Let's talk about this. You
You
not.
better be engaged with
So
her
you
before
have to engage with your wife.
Yeah,
Will she make you engage? She will
no,
say.
I know.
You
I
know to act
engage.
like. Wait a minute. Do you
Not know
know
act
to
like-
act like it, or you know to do
Know
it?
to engage.
Totally engaged.
Yes.
What is your act of service, Karen?
Access all that from A to Z. From A to Z. Okay?
Dan is a happy man.
But
It should be
it's
because
important.
I don't leave any. Only thing I don't do is laundry. I don't do his laundry or anything, but anything in between that, from cooking to helping him, because he's been a little sick. So I've pretty much been just doing whatever he needs, just
Hold
making
on.
sure he was okay.
Audience, we do not want letters about she should do the laundry. I want to tell you right now, do not write us. Don't write us about the laundry. We got about 3 minutes left.
I think it's important that we all understand our spouse love language, because it can save your marriage. And I was listening to Dr. Gary Chapman actually earlier.
You
today.
like him, don't you?
Yeah, it's powerful, because I didn't understand. I didn't understand that, it was before we even knew about the book. She was like, I don't care nothing about all of that overtime you work at. I care about, you spending time with me. And then I got a real eye opener. We own property, and so I'm hot, I'm mad, I'm fixing something that shouldn't be broke at the building, and she know I'm hot too, and she just standing there watching me. And then the eye opener was, I'm hot. You talking about what? You turned on by me doing work. What? I'm hot on one side, but I'm like, oh, okay. So that's when I learned about the acts of service, or whatever the case may be. So, and it was just real eye-opening how he was saying,
Acts of service. We're going to revisit this topic at a later date. I'm PM Blossom. Thank you for tuning in. Co-host Tony Carter, Kim Galloway, Karen Hammonds, and of course, Brian Wright. God bless you.
Thank you for tuning in to Now. Now is a production of In Between Amens. PM Blossom, executive producer. Co-host, Karen Hammonds. Kim Galloway, Tony Carter, and Bryant Wright. Now is a production of In Between Amens in partnership with World Outreach Conference Center for East 111th Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60628. 773-264-2588.